Hello, ni hao, and hola, Eagles. My name's Austin Sickles, as many of you know, and I'm here to welcome you to today's Leadership Speakers Series. I'm joined by my fellow co-hosts and scholars from around the state. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon. My name is Celia Simano, and I'm a senior at the Arlington Grand Prairie High School campus, and I have been with ILTexas for 9 years.
Hello, my name is Sheldon Williams, a senior at the Lancaster DeSoto High School campus and student council president.
Hello, my name is Joyce Adewale, and I'm a senior at the Katy West Park High School. I currently hold the position of sergeant in the MCJ ROTC program.
Hello, everyone. My name is Uingbo. I'm a senior at ILTexas Garland High School. I've been here for 3 years and looking forward to continue my education at Vanderbilt University. Okay, so at ILTexas, leadership is our middle name, and Leadership Speaking Series has been providing us the opportunity to engage and learn from the world's greatest leaders. Today, we are honored to join by Mr. Ross Perot Jr.
Mr. Perot is a native Texan who is chairman of the Perot Group. The Perot Group manages various interests such as oil, gas, real estate, as well as financial investments.
After graduating from Vanderbilt University, he served in the United States Air Force. He also co-piloted the first flight around the world via helicopter.
In addition to his business ventures, Mr. Perot actively works to develop and foster international relationships with organizations such as the East-West Institution, where he currently holds the position of chairman of the board.
Eagles, please join us in giving a warm ILTexas welcome to Mr. Ross Perot Jr.
Thank you. Oh, close. Well, thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. And what an amazing program. This is my first day to get a tour of the leadership program. And I would like to say that you are all extraordinarily fortunate to be involved in such a unique school, and a school that's developing leaders based on very solid, timeless military leadership principles. And you have an extraordinarily bright future. And I look forward to seeing where all of you are going to go and to see what you can do in this world. And you're needed. You are really, really needed. Leaders are always needed, and for you to be in this community and learning the 3 languages is very impressive. I wish I could learn Chinese. And to listen to I learned a little Spanish, but to listen to the Chinese, Spanish, and English in one class is very unique, and what a great privilege it is. As you continue your education, continue to work very hard. And you wouldn't be in this program if you didn't know how to work hard. And the habits you're picking up now, you're going to take with you all your life. Number 2, make sure you continue your education. You're getting a great foundation. You will have to learn every day to continue to prepare to be a great leader, because leadership training will never end, learning will never end, especially in the world we're going into. And then you're extraordinarily fortunate because, number 1, you're in America, the most amazing country in the world. And number 2, you're in Texas, the greatest state in the union. And we're in Dallas, Texas. And for you to go to school in a community like Dallas, Texas, which is now one of the fastest growing regions in the nation, we had almost 400 people a day are moving into Dallas-Fort Worth. Over 1,000 people a day are moving into our state. This is a very unique area. And so I hope you will work hard, you will be successful, learn the world, go out around the world. But I hope when you decide to raise a family, build a business, and start your career, you will do it here in Dallas, Texas, because you're needed, and this is one of the great growth regions in the world. We have 8 million people in Dallas-Fort Worth today. We will quickly, when I started my career, started working here, we had 3 million people. So in 30 years, we've added 5 million people. And so the next 30 years, you can imagine we'll be 12 to 13 million people in North Texas. And again, this is an area that is optimistic, it has great potential, has unlimited room to grow. will be the third largest region in the country, probably in the next 10 years. New York, LA, currently Chicago, will pass Chicago, and then it'll be Dallas-Fort Worth. And so your skills, your training, and your future will be extraordinarily bright, and you're all very privileged to go to this school. I look forward to the questions, and I hear they're going to be tough questions, right?
Yes, sir.
But are you just going to ask the questions, or the audience going to ask questions? You all ask questions. So why don't we get into the questions, and I'd love to hear what's on your mind.
All right, well, I believe I'm first to ask our questions. You talked a little bit about some of these timeless leadership principles we have in our program that come from the military. And a lot of what we learn as being a leader in ILTexas is that a lot of good leadership comes from being a good follower. So in your opinion, from your experience, what are some good traits of good followership?
Well, first of all, to be a good follower, you got to be a good listener. And also to be a good follower, what we learned in the military and what you learn throughout your career is you must have great integrity. And we're all not blessed to always have great leaders. And you might have a leader that's not as good, and it's up to you to correct that leader. And so if a leader tells you something wrong that's not going to work, as a follower, have the courage. So I'd say great integrity, but also have courage. And if something is going on that you don't like, you need to tell that leader. Or if you see your leader, if you've got a better idea on how to improve a situation, you don't sit back and watch a scenario that just becomes average. I mean, no one in this room wants to be average. I mean, we don't wake up every day to be average. If you're a leader, you wake up to be the best. And so as that follower, it's your duty to help that leader get better. And if you've got those ideas, have courage and tell the idea. So at the end of the day, great integrity, great courage, and great character. That's the key. So being a good follower, those traits are also critical as the leader.
So, thank you for your answer. And this is my question for you. So which of your previous leader, it can be personal or professional, has the biggest influence on who you have become today and why?
So I've had incredible leaders throughout my life, but of course, I was able to be born with live with my hero, my father. And so my father has always been the man I looked up to. He was an incredible leader, an incredible motivator. And so I grew up with, the man that I wanted to be like with his leadership skill. And because of him, I met some of the nation's top leaders. And as I was growing up, a lot of those top leaders would come to our home. Frank Borman, one of the first men to fly around the moon, would come to our house. So as a little boy, Frank Borman would land his T-38 at Love Field. He'd come to our home in his flight suit, and he'd talk about being an astronaut. And so for a little guy like me to hear those stories, people say, why do you want to be a pilot? Well, when you're exposed to men like Frank Borman, you want to be a pilot. And then my father went to the Naval Academy. And so as I was growing up, my father's classmates were captains of ships. And so we'd go out literally around the world, and we would pick up different ships around the world because these are my father's classmates. So I was on an aircraft carrier off the coast of North Vietnam as a little boy, and I watched fly airstrikes into Vietnam. This is back before you were born. Might be sensitive since you're from Vietnam. So North is on the North Vietnam side. And then I was on submarines off the coast of Scotland. I was on a destroyer going through the Suez Canal. And so I was with all these great military leaders growing up, astronauts, political leaders, et cetera. So my father was the most important leader, but then the leaders he exposed me to were very important.
Thank you, Mr. Perot. That was very insightful. I understand that in 1982, you co-piloted the first flight by helicopter around the world. And so my question for you is, were there ever any moments during your travel that you feel challenged your courage to complete the journey?
Well, of course, it was a trip that came together very quickly. And so in August of '82, a man named Dick Smith, an Australian, took off to be the first man to fly a helicopter around the world. I was a helicopter pilot at the time, and I said, number one, I'm shocked that the trip hadn't been done before. And number two, I was amazed that an American wasn't going to do the trip. And that's what Americans normally do. And I said, okay. I was working with my father, and I was talking to him. He said, what'd you think about that Australian? I said, well, you know, Dad, I think we ought to go beat him. And my dad loved big ideas, and he said, okay, let's go beat him. And so the man I flew with was Jay Coburn. And Jay Coburn flew in the Vietnam War. He was a combat veteran in Vietnam, and Jay and I have been flying together for years. And so the two of us took off. And so August 1st, we thought of it. We took off September 1st. And so the trip was being planned almost every day as we went around the world. And this was prior, you didn't have cell phones, you didn't have GPS, all the modern navigation equipment wasn't there. So it was kind of the old fashioned navigation going around the world. And so every day was a tremendous adventure, but we never, ever talked about stopping. I mean, quitting was just not ever anything we were gonna do. And the experts thought, they said, look, it's going to take you 90 days. There's no way you can get around the world faster than 90 days. And we said, no, we're going to get it done in 30 days. So we had a big dream, a big goal that was tough, and we got around the world in 29 days. And so the Lord took care of us, and everywhere we should have had bad weather, we didn't. And we had parts of the flight that we were literally running out of fuel in the North Pacific. We had about an hour and a half of fuel left, and we had a headwind. And literally the winds changed, and we were blowing into Shimia Island at the right at the edge of the Aleutian Island. So we never thought about quitting. It was a very entrepreneurial trip. A third of the trip was the flying part. 2/3 was the great team we had that allowed us to do that work. And so whatever you do in your life, you're not going to be the one that does it. It's going to be your team. And you've got to surround yourself with really great men and women with the same vision, build that team, then you help lead that team. And we had a great team going around the world.
Thank you, Mr. Perot, and congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you.
My question for you is, you currently serve as chairman of the board of the East-West Institute. When working with international organizations, what would you say is one of the greatest leadership challenges you have had to face?
I think when you're involved in an international institute like the East-West Institute, they're great challenges, but it is people from all over the world. And so you have every culture in the world. And when you're in that environment, like this environment, you have to become, you need to really be a good listener. And when we were in China working on a lot of our big diplomatic projects, we'd spend, and I was not on the front lines. We had Madeleine Albright, former Secretary of State. I mean, she's the one that led the delegation. We had American senior politicians leading these delegations, and I was a civilian kind of sitting at the back of the room watching. But I watched Madeleine Albright work with the Chinese, and she was a great listener. And she would listen, she would try to understand, and that to me was the key to diplomacy. But then you also, Madeleine Albright, she told us, as we were flying to China, we landed in Anchorage to refuel, and we had Republicans and Democrats. And we were in the terminal, and she looked at us, she said, look, as soon as we cross the water, we're Americans. I don't want to hear about political parties. It's America. And so literally you didn't see the politics between the political leaders. It was all focusing on what was best for America, what was best for the world. And that's what Madeleine taught us. And the other would be when the Chinese would come to see us. We'd have major Chinese delegations come to our country. And I told everybody on our team, I said, whoever hosted the Chinese, what I wanted the Chinese to see was an American home. And everywhere they went, they would go to our hosts, they would go to their home. And I said, I want the Chinese leadership to meet our children. And so we'd have our children, and children were involved in all of these delegations coming over, because I think we're all human. We all love our families. We all love our children. And it's that common ground of family and children that can really help a lot of diplomacy around the world.
Thank you for your answer. And thank you for bringing up the point of unity as well. My question is, with the world being more interconnected globally and businesses using more international influence than ever before, What must our country do to maintain a position of leadership and responsibility when it comes to world affairs?
I think, we, the United States, have the natural position to help lead the world. And really, since World War I, we have been the world's leaders. And we continue to be the world's leaders. And to maintain that leadership, we must maintain a very, very strong economy. Because it's this economy that we have that's the envy of the world. And it's the prosperity we have and the ability for the American people to innovate and grow the way we do is very unique. And what I talk to our team about, America certainly does it, but then go out a little bit bigger. Let's talk about North America. And if you look at the future, the North American trading bloc, there's nobody in the world that can touch the North American trading bloc. But that brings in Mexico and that brings in Canada. And so with Mexico, then you bring the youth and the demographics. In Canada, you bring the wealth of Canada and the natural resources. So North America's got phenomenal people, phenomenal systems, great natural resources. And so now go around the world. China, the problem China has are demographics. China's getting old. And the one-child policy hurt Chinese demographics. And as Chinese ages, their ability to compete will not be like our ability to compete. So again, back with Mexico and good immigration law, you've got very young people moving to the country. And if you look at the people moving in from all over the world, it's that diversity, that is our strength to bring the most talented people in the world to America to build this economy. So number one, the economy, then look at it in North America. And then the next key point is our military. And we must continue to have a very strong, well-funded military. And if you do that, you will have the American value, the American culture that should be help keep peace around the world. And we have now for decades maintained peace around the world. And if you can maintain peace, then you have great global prosperity. Everybody here is too young, except maybe the generals, to remember what the wars were like. But you go into these major wars, the damage done to countries and economies is staggering. And you have to do everything you can to avoid that destruction. And with peace, you can do that. So great economy. Think of it as a really North American trading bloc and great defense.
Right. Well, thank you for those insightful words. Other than those of us on stage, there's those out there who have questions from across the state. Let's hear what sort of things they have to ask.
So first off, we have Lancaster DeSoto High School. Lancaster DeSoto High School, what's your question for Mr. Perot?
Hello, Mr. Perot. How are you doing today?
I'm great.
That's good. My name is Niobe Gray, and I'm a senior here at the Lancaster DeSoto campus. So from making the first circumnavigation around the globe in a helicopter at only 23 to forming the world's first industrial airport, what you've been able to accomplish in your life and your career is truly remarkable. I know you've served in various roles within your community, such as CEO, chairman of the board, and a member of its board of directors. So as a leader in business, part of your job is making sure your team is performing at the highest level possible. How do you use your position of leadership to influence, motivate, and keep your team productive?
I think that's a very good question. Thank you. So the first thing you do is you have to hire the right team members. And so recruiting is the most important thing you can do as a leader. If you bring in the right men and women on your team and put them in the right environment, you can have a very successful company. And so my father used to talk about recruiting. And his philosophy was eagles don't flock. You have to find them one at a time. You can't find a pool of great people to recruit from. You've got to go one at a time. That perhaps the greatest recruiting area we've done for decades since the Vietnam War is my father would go to the military bases during the war, and he recruited men and women right from Vietnam, from the war, to come into our companies. And the reason he wanted that is why we're here today, because in the military, you're a leader. And my father loved to tell, if he was here today, he would say this, you lead people.
And so when you're leading people, it's leadership. You manage things. So too many people talk about management in an organization. In our companies, we don't talk about management, we talk about leadership. And so we have a great team. We put them in a great environment, and then we make sure they know the mission. And then once they know the mission, I, as a leader, I stand back, and then I watch and I let them deliver and build the business. And so again, you'll learn this in the military, but it's the men and women on the front line. They're the ones that see what needs to be done in a company. And if the men and women on the front line are empowered to make the decisions, then you can have a successful company. If you're in an environment where everything has to come to you as a leader, that's a problem. Those decisions need to be pushed down. And in that kind of environment, and it's entrepreneurial, we don't like bureaucracy. We don't like memos. Everybody knows if you're going to deal with me, don't send a memo. And everybody knows if you deal with me, nothing important will happen on email. I mean, you can call me, you can see me, but don't think that I'm going to sit around and answer emails all day. That's not leadership. I mean, that's a little bit being a bureaucrat. And then for the generals in the audience, I did spend a few years in the Pentagon, and I learned about bureaucracy. And I came back and I told our team, we're not going to have bureaucracy. We're going to keep this place lean and efficient, and we're going to let our men and women make decisions. And what I ask, when you give people that responsibility, then their responsibility back to you is, sooner or later they need to tell you what they did. But also, if you make a mistake, let me know. And as a leader, the bad news normally has a hard time getting to the leader. And so you, the leader, better look for the bad news. And if you live in an environment where every day you just get nice reports, there's a problem. Because you know there's something broken out there, there's something you need to improve. So as a leader, ask for it. Say, okay, look, what's going on? What's the problem? What do I need to worry about? I mean, make their problem your problem, and you fix it together.
Thank you for your insight, Mr. Perot. And thank you for your question, Lancaster DeSoto High School. Next up, we'll be hearing from Windmill Lakes Orem High School. Windmill Lakes, what is your question for Mr. Perot?
Good afternoon, Mr. Perot. My name is Seth Bayona, and I'm a senior at the Windmill Lakes Orem campus. My question to you is, staying on the theme of teams, as students, we are often working together on projects and extracurriculars. What advice do you have when it comes to team building and how to build a successful team?
I'm having a hard time understanding. What was the question?
I believe her question was, as students, we are often working together in teams on projects or in our extracurriculars.
Okay.
What advice do you have when it comes to team building, and how can we build successful teams even in high school?
Great. I'm sorry, the mask made it hard to hear it. It gets back to leadership. So now you're in, I'm sure you'll do a lot like you're doing today. You get to practice your leadership, and you're doing a great job. I give everybody an A on the stage. How about that? So on your small teams, it's a laboratory. And in high school, take risk. Practice your leadership style. When this is where you're being trained, you don't have huge responsibilities now. So take the risk, learn your style. There are thousands of ways to be successful. You've got to find your own way to be successful and your own style to be successful. And there are lots of leadership styles. But again, it gets back to what we've discussed earlier. When you're in charge of that little team, do you really know your team members? And once you're about to take over, know that team member. Ask about their family. Ask about their siblings. How far away do you live? What's your commute every day? Get to understand that team and what their life is like every day. And then you'll learn how to lead that individual because of that individual's personality in certain circumstances. Listen, you'll learn, ask a lot of questions, listen, and then at the end of the day, make sure that team knows the team's goal. You can't keep the goal to yourself. But you've got to bring that goal out and say, okay, look, team, this is what we're working on. Here's what I think. What do you think? And then they'll give you ideas. You'll make it better. And then summarize. Okay, here's what I heard. Here's what I think we're going to do. So I think we've all agreed we're going to do this. But then have an environment where the team members got to say, no, wait a minute. That's not what I meant. We got to do that. And so have that open dialogue, have the common goal, and then you've got to be flexible. Because you can have a plan, and as soon as you start and hit reality, the odds are that plan's going to change. And if you can't adapt quickly to the changing environment and the changing plan, you're in trouble. Many companies do 5 and 10-year plans. We don't do 5 and 10-year plans. No one knows what the world's like in 5 or 10 years. And so we manage on 90-day cycles. And I'm with the team every Monday, every team leader. I talk about every issue going on around the world, and we make real-time changes at least once a week. And everybody knows I'll make it day to day, hour to hour. And if we have we operate in Iraq. We've got 2,000 people up in northern Iraq today. A very challenging environment, completely different set of leadership skills in northern Iraq than we have in North Fort Worth. And so you've got to listen, learn, adapt, and be flexible.
Thank you, Windmill Lakes Orem High School. Next up, we'll be heading down to College Station. Aggieland, what is your question for Mr. Ross Perot?
Howdy, Mr. Perot. My name is Jocelyn Thames. I'm a junior here at the Aggieland campus. As you know, at ILTexas, our motto is others before self, and we work each day to become servant leaders. As a philanthropist, you live that motto every day. My question for you is, can you give an example of a time where giving back to others made you a better servant leader?
I think giving back to others is the constant. And if you're going to be a great leader, that team needs to know you care about them. And so how you give to them and treat them every day is very important. And so that's within your team, but then our residential group, I was with them today, and we do 4 or 5 homes for heroes every year. And so we build homes for heroes, and we give those homes to wounded veterans and their families. And so nothing builds morale better within your team than helping others, especially when you open up these brand new homes, fully furnished, and you see that wounded veteran walk in, and you see the spouse walk in, and you see the cries and the hugs and the joy in the children's eyes. I mean, that's why we're here. I mean, that's why we're all here, to help other people at all times. And great teams will do that, and then you'll do it together.
Great question, Aggieland. Next up, we have Arlington Grand Prairie. Arlington Grand Prairie, what is your question for Mr. Perot?
Thank you so much. My name is Haley Vasquez, and I'm in my senior year. Was there ever a time where a business decision that you were responsible for didn't go the way you expected? If so, how did you learn from that challenge? And what did you learn? How did you respond to that challenge, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, sure, I've made lots of decisions that didn't work, but hopefully I had the team socialized, and we made that decision together. And when we hit the line, if that didn't work, we all took responsibility, and we go back out, be flexible, and change the plan. The most difficult thing that a leader has to do, and basically in all great teams, it's a pretty simple philosophy. All the good things that happen to an organization, you give all that credit to your team. When the bad things happen, you've got to take the responsibility. So that's the leader. So you've got to take the bad news. You've got to take that bad news. And so that's what you'll do as a leader. But you do it with integrity, and you're honest, and that's how you work through it. But the most difficult thing you've got to do in any organization is when times are tough and a business has failed, laying people off. That's really, really hard. And that really goes against our culture. And we work really hard in our companies to be safe, to run a safe business, so we don't have to do that. But you hit very difficult times where you have to do it. Now, when you do it, you treat people right, you give them a good severance package, you keep them on healthcare benefits, you make it as easy as possible. But when somebody loses their job, that is really painful. And so that's always the toughest decision to make. And it's a decision you do everything you can not to have to make.
Right. Thank you, Arlington Grand Prairie, for that question. Thank you, Mr. Perot, for your great answer. Let's see what Katie Westpark has to say. Katie Westpark, what's your question for us?
Hello, Mr. Perot. My name is Hazem Bakit, and I'm a senior here at the Katie Westpark campus. My question to you is, your father ran for president as an independent in 1992. I know that was quite a few years ago. However, what were some lessons you learned during that experience, and would you ever consider running yourself?
Well, I'm not interested in running for politics myself. That's the easy answer. We learned a huge amount because we're not a political family. And if you go back, you're young, so you didn't live the history. But if you go back and look at the history, my father was on a TV show called Larry King, talk show. And Larry King kept pushing my father, would you run for president? Would you run for president? And on that TV show, he said, look, Larry, if the American people want me to run, here's my phone number, have them call me. And it's like, and so my mother didn't know. And we didn't, I had four sisters, we didn't know. I was in the Philippines and I'm watching Larry King tape delay in the Philippines. I call him up and I said, Dad, what's all that about? And he goes, Ross, he said, look, continue on with the trip. No one wants me to be president. I said, oh, okay, so that made sense. I came home 2 or 3 days later and we were overwhelmed. And I think the lesson is he was very entrepreneurial. He had great integrity. He had been known his career, certainly successful businessman starting EDS, and he was a founder of Technology Services. Then where he really became known across the country is that he went to work to help the prisoners of war in Vietnam. And because they were not being treated well by the North Vietnamese, he put global attention on it and forced the North Vietnamese to treat our prisoners better. And the POWs will tell me, because of your father, where they lived. And so that elevated his in the world. And then he did different business things that gave him attention. Then his big one was in 1979, he led a raid into Iran to basically free 2 of our people that were held hostage during the revolution. And that came out in a book called On Wings of Eagles by Ken Follett. So my father had good visibility. People had known about him. Then he did the war on drugs for the state, education reform for the state, very visible public figure. And so that's when Larry leaned on to be president. So when I came back from the Philippines, literally the phone networks in our part of the country had locked up. I mean, so many people had called to try to get him to run that it was overwhelming. So the lesson is, the American people really respond to that leadership of great integrity. And they really want somebody that had his vision and his courage to get things done. Because as Jim Williams knows, my dad knew how to get stuff done. And I would joke, I'd tell the team, because if you're called by my father, whatever he asks you to do, you better do it right now. Because if you don't, you're on the yellow pad and he's going to call you back in an hour and he's going to ask, did you do it? And so your life's a lot easier to drop everything and just do it. My dad could get stuff done. And so that's the lesson we learned. And then the other real lesson you learned is an independent running for president. We went into the first debate and Republicans had 300 people, Democrats had 300 people. Dad had his family and like 2 staff. And they had they had the, men's football locker room, the women's basketball locker room, and they gave us like the auxiliary bathroom. I mean, we had no space, no staff. I mean, it is hard as an independent to run, but he went in and against these 2 massive armies, basically by himself, and had that courage I talked about and had that integrity, and he took them on and he did an amazing job. And he won 19% of the vote for a third-party candidate, and Teddy Roosevelt, I think, had about 21 or 22%. So it was an amazing third-party run. But the real lesson, if you've got the determination, and this is where I would tell people, they go, what kind of focus groups and polling did your father do? I go, well, he doesn't do focus groups. He doesn't do polling. He's got a one-man poll. He looks in the mirror. And if he thinks it's right, that's what he would do.
So thank you, Keller.
Thank you, Katie Westport High School, for your question, and thank you, Mr. Perot, for your answer.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Keller Saginaw High School. Keller Saginaw High School, what's your question?
Hello, I'm Sarah Sheeler, senior at the Keller Saginaw campus. And my question for you, Mr. Perot, is if you could go back and give one piece of advice to yourself during your senior year in high school, what would it be?
Dream big. And you're in a beautiful spot in your life. And you have the world open to you. And as I mentioned, I mean, you're citizens of the United States. You're citizens of Texas. You're in a high growth area. You're in this beautiful school. You've got these incredible teachers. You know, take advantage of the school, take advantage of these teachers, really mine all the data and all the experience they have here. And then when you go out in the world, what is in your heart? I mean, what do you really love to do? What is going to be your position on this world, position in society, and where can you be the best at what you do? It's more than a lot of people say, I want to make a lot of money. And I said, well, okay, but making money is fine, but is that what you're really going to be great at? And is that how you're really going to improve our society? And there are thousands of roles for all of us to play. Pick your role, play it very well, do the best you can, but then never forget your school. And when you are successful, make sure you continue to help your school and help the other young students. All the advantages you have is because others have sacrificed for you. Make sure you sacrifice for these future children in these schools.
Well, thank you, Keller High School, for your amazing question. And thank you, Mr. Perot, for your great answers, and to the other campuses for their questions and your answers to them. Here at the Garland campus, we have our live studio audience here, and there's a student out there who'd like to ask her question. Ashley, what's your question for Mr. Perot?
Hello, Mr. Perot. I hope that you have a great day today. And I am Ashley Cole, a sophomore here at ILTexas Garland High School campus, and has a person that is interested in starting my own business in the future. I want to ask you a quick question. As the world is becoming more interconnected and globalized, how important is that our leaders in our government and our leaders in our businesses are thinking with an international mindset?
Well, I think to start your own business, you want to be a good entrepreneur. You need experience, find out what you like and what you love, and then whatever business you think you want to go into, find somebody that can really teach you well and get into a great training program, which again, that's what my father did. He went to IBM, trained by IBM, top IBM salesman, then he started EDS. So he had the training, had the background. So that's number one. Number two, whatever business you're in an international world. And the world is getting smaller every day. Just look at this school, look at this student body, look where everybody's from. So you must understand the world, you must know the cultures of the world, and anytime you have an opportunity to travel, you've got to travel and see the world. And as you get, when you're young and you're building your career, or you're in school, always volunteer. If there's a new experience out there that you haven't done, volunteer. Always be open-minded. And then technology, it's the foundation of today's economy. Technology is going to become more and more embedded in our economy. Almost to the point now you can see the debates, is technology too embedded in the economy? And is technology too powerful? And is social media too powerful? And we're all going to have to learn how to regulate all of the technology moving into our life, and then the world of artificial intelligence and virtual reality. I mean, you have a world out here that I can't comprehend that you're going to live in. Make sure as you go into that world, you've got to keep your values. You know, you've got to keep your integrity. You've got to keep your culture and who you are. Don't let this technology damage who you are and confuse who you are. And that's the balance I'm not on much technology. I'm not in social media. To me, it takes too much time, but that's my generation. Our marketing teams are in social media. We have people in social media, but personally, I use it as a tool, but I don't spend much time on it because I think you can waste a lot of time around it. So if you really want to be an entrepreneur, find your passion, learn, be open-minded. You're going to try. We used to, within our venture capital company, we talk about, you're going to bet on the horse or the jockey. We bet on the jockey. And if we find a great entrepreneur, it doesn't really matter what he or she is going to do. So we don't care about the horse. We want that rider. And then we back many early stage venture capital investments with young entrepreneurs. And we know the odds are the first deals are going to fail, but if you back the right entrepreneur, one day they'll be very successful. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashley.
One final question for you, sir. You are a man that is very wise and you have many experience in your life. My question is for you is, what is the most important leadership trait to you and why?
I think the most important leadership trait to me, if there's one thing you always look for, it's integrity. And Warren Buffett's got a great phrase. He says, if I can pick a man, integrity or very smart, always take integrity, because if you had a very smart man that's dishonest, you can get in real trouble. You need to have people that are honest, and then people need to know they can depend on you. And when you are carrying out a mission, they need to know you will do it to the best of your possible ability. And so at the end of the day, integrity and treat everybody like you want to be treated, the golden rule. And you keep those two things in mind, you're going to do well in this world. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Perot, for your words of wisdom. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for visiting us here at Garland High School campus. Please feel free to visit any of our other campuses around the state.
Thank you. It's a great honor.
We'll be sure to give you a warm ILTexas welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, and before we go, we would also like to thank to the fitness and athletic teams for sharing the spot for us today. We also want to give a big shout out and huge thank you to all the students who ran the event behind the scene. The entire production is student-led and executive. So great job, team, and thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
We would also like to thank our Eagles around the state. I hope you are all able to take away as many valuable lessons as I was, and we are wishing you all a safe and happy holiday season. And we look forward to bringing you many more Leadership Speaker Series events after the winter break.
We'd also like to give a big shout out and a huge thank you to Garland High School for hosting this event and making this possible. Thank you, Garland High School. Give yourselves a round of applause.
Well, my co-hosts have said all the thank yous, and there's only one thing left to say. Let's have a great day the ILTexas way. Go!
Everyone, please stay seated. You'll have direction as to how to leave the